Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Our special treat for today is Bruce Stewart of Perch. And Perch Energy is a leading community solar services. So what's up, Bruce? Welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast.
Hey, Sean, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today about all things that we love, solar and the growth of solar and the whole business. So really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much. And so maybe we can even start off by just defining community solar and what community solar is. So you're doing it, and I know that some places do it better than other places. And so where are you located, first of all?
So Perch Energy is based in Boston.
Oh, I'm on my way there almost.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'm going to go there in a couple of days.
Good, good. Well, it's a great place to visit in the summertime. So hopefully you have some good, fun summer plans here. It's nice and sunny and looking forward to having you arrive.
Yeah, I'm going to be teaching a class at Community Work Services, and they're over there down by where the Celtics play, by the Garden.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that'll be exciting.
Done that a bunch of times. Yeah.
Take a peek and go check out the Larry O'Brien trophy that they just won.
Okay, I'll check it out. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
On community solar, to answer your question, Sean. So community solar, there are 20 plus different states in the United States that have enabled community solar. And it's a simple proposition that more and more customers are learning about. It's an opportunity to subscribe and get energy savings by subscribing to a community solar farm that isn't co-located on your home or your business. So it's this notion that you can share the benefits through a community solar farm that might be built on top of a brownfield site. It might be built on a piece of unused agricultural land. It might be built on the side of a highway. It might be actually built on the top of a building. But the idea is that the broader community can subscribe to get to that community solar farm and get credits, which are fundamentally discounts on their energy bill, on their electricity bill, that will then show up and give them the value to do two things, which is really important. The customers can say, hey, listen, everybody likes to be able to save a little bit of money on their energy bill. That's a given, right? But at the same time, you can have the opportunity to support through your subscription the build out of net new clean energy generation through solar in your community, and fundamentally be part of that step function change of bringing more green, clean energy onto the grid to power us for this decade and decades beyond.
So, I mean, that sounds like a really good thing. And if it's only in 20 states, why are 30 states stupid?
Well, it's just a matter of the states themselves providing incentives, right? And the states had to say, this is really important. This is one of the tools, one of the mechanisms by which we're going to create a cleaner, renewable-based grid through time. And it's really that simple. So the states basically are providing incentives. Part of the reason is they'll create a program and say, go out and build 200, 250, or unlimited, like New York, unlimited number of megawatts, unlimited number of solar farm capacity for people to subscribe to. And when they do that, they'll create incentives for some of those energy discounts to go back to end customers. So the states themselves at a level need to promulgate the rules, right? Basically adopt legislation that says, number one, we're going to support this notion of community solar, then work with their local utilities to say, now when these farms are built, they then interconnect directly into the grid. They don't go into somebody's business. The farms connect to the grid. So they work with the utilities to say, work with these community solar farm builders that are spending their own private money to build these, interconnect to the grid. And then we then work with the utilities to basically then help place the discounts and the credits onto their bill. So there's a few parties that need to be involved, right? So it's the state legislature, right? It's the utilities, it's the guys who are building the farms who are our partners. They all need to come together, and there's a set of rules that do that. So 20 and growing number of states are saying this is a great way to increasingly change the color or the complexion of our grid and add more renewables into the market to complement the existing sort of, call it coal generation, nukes, or natural gas generation facilities.
Yeah, I mean, community solar to me has always sounded like such a great idea. And it's unfortunate that not everybody can do it. I mean, if it's only like 20 out of 50 states, it seems kind of unfair. And I guess maybe that's has to do with politics and public utilities commissions and things like that. Or does that number keep growing? Do you see that number grow?
Yeah, and it has kept growing. So if you sort of think about it, some of the biggest markets are doing it. So if you go from the East Coast to the center to the West Coast, right? So New York is one of the most robust programs, right? Across the state of New York. Then you do the whole New England market. So Maine, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Maryland, Delaware, even Virginia, Washington, D.C. So that whole corridor has moved into it. Then you go into the center and you've got big states like Illinois that's recently promulgated and it actually is now quite robust in sort of rolling it out. You throw, Minnesota that's also in that market. Then you go on the far west where California has adopted some rules to support community solar. Those rules, I think, need to be tuned up a little bit better, but that was recent in the last sort of year and a half. So there's a lot of other states. And so who else is also considering it are some of the other most populous markets. So you've got Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. They're all looking at and evaluating at in the state legislatures with their governors and the other offices to look at how they might bring that forward. So people are looking at the models that are out there. They like what they see. It just takes some time for everybody to get there. This isn't a federal sort of rule that says it's everywhere. This is still a state by state based where they promulgate it because they're creating incentives to be able to do that. And that becomes state funded.
Okay. So the way that I've kind of looked at community solar just on a real basic level is if you can't get solar on your roof, or maybe you just don't want to have solar on your own roof, somebody could put up a solar project just outside of town, something like that. And then you can treat it as if it was right on your roof. And does that sound sort of right?
It does. It does.
Mm.
And there's a lot of reasons why people may determine when they can't get solar on their roof, to your point, or don't want to put it on their roof or don't want to invest in it. And there's a whole class of customers who don't have a roof to put it on because they are renters and they're tenants, right? And so the community solar says is whether you have roof capacity or not, right? Whether you're a tenant or a homeowner, whether you have the right positioning for your roof, maybe it's too shady, right? That's where it can't, or it's not facing the right direction to get adequate sort of sunlight. Or maybe you don't want to make that investment, or you don't want to put it on there because it then will actually have additional costs to replace roof elements. And you can't or don't want to, fine. We've got a solution that is no fuss. You can simply subscribe to something that's, to your point, in the local community, right outside of town or in town. And you don't have to have any ongoing maintenance for that project. That's all handled for you by the project owner who actually owns that solar farm. And you simply get a discount, if you will, by subscribing to that on your electricity bill. Try to make it really nice and easy, right? And the sign up process, again, Sean, that's easy, right? You're not paying anything. There's not somebody needs to come out. You don't need to do a study on your roof. You don't need to drill anything. You're done. So it's, solar without, the rooftop panels on your own business or roof.
Yeah, I could think of some other reasons too why people might want to do it is like they might be moving because you hear about people buying solar and it's like, well, what do I do? How do I get out of this contract? And is it going to interfere with the sale of my house? And then other things too would be avoiding the unknown with solar salespeople because there's some good solar salespeople and some bad ones. And so you could avoid running into one of the bad solar salespeople. It seems to me too that it would be kind of dumb not to do community solar if you had the opportunity. I mean, it essentially just makes your bill lower, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward value proposition, right? To your point, like who doesn't want to be able to save some money on their, on their utility bill, on their electricity bill? And the answer is, well, everybody wants to save on it, right? So it does have that overarching opportunity for all, right? And we sort of often talk about this. This is an opportunity for solar for all, for everybody to have the opportunity to subscribe and get some benefits.
Yeah. So one of the arguments against solar and rooftop solar on somebody's house has been that solar's for rich people because only rich people can afford houses. And then if you can't even afford a house, then to put solar on your house. And so it makes it a little bit difficult that way. There's some workarounds, like there's grid alternatives that does solar for low income people and stuff like that. But if you're not rich and you're a renter or you're in an urban area, something like that, that sounds like a great reason to do community solar. And so you are in New York, which is the most urban area in the country. maybe even the world if you look at some blocks, that kind of concentration. And so that sounds like a great idea. And I'm sure too that community solar is different in different states because they have different laws. So there's probably some states that are good and some that are bad. Do you just work in New York or do you work in different states
Oh,
too?
no, no, no. Yeah, no, we're in 8 different states, right? So we have projects we're supporting in Maine and Massachusetts, in New York, in New Jersey, in Maryland. We're also in Minnesota and Illinois. So we've sort of covered the waterfront for markets. There are additional markets like Oregon and Colorado that we're not in yet. We're looking at opportunities there. There's opportunities in Virginia we're not quite in yet, but yeah, we're in most of some of the thriving and high growth markets at the moment.
And so for your company, Perch Energy, it says you're a community solar servicer. And so there's different parts of the chain there. Like you would have somebody that's a developer, or is Perch developing projects, is investing in projects, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sean. So how it works is that there's traditionally folks whose number one goal and objective is to build, right? So they basically find the properties, they find the sites and the land, right? Or the rooftops where they'll build a community solar project. They will get financing for that, and then they'll do the engineering and procurement of the materials and then the construction of that project, and then they will build it. So there's a real estate element and a construction element of building that solar farm. Those parties are our partners.
Those are your partners. So you're not the EPC, you're not the developer.
I'm not, yeah, but I'm work tightly with them. And then they line up with something for me. And then they say, okay, great, I'm going to build this thing. And while I'm building it, let's go acquire customers for it. So when I turn it on, day one, it gets plugged into the grid and it starts producing clean, renewable energy that funnels into the grid, that we have customers that can receive the credits, if you will, the discounts that we've already signed up. That's where we are. So we come in and we contract with our developer, our asset owner that's going to own that property for another, let's call it 25 or plus years. They'll say, we want you to fill our project with customers and then maintain it full for that 25-year time frame. So that's what we call servicing the customers. And what does that mean? That means we acquire and then we put them on the project. We work with the utility to make sure that the utility partner knows that they're now subscribed to a community solar farm and they can get the discounts. And that's sort of there's elements of billing and collection to make sure they're paying their bill along. And then we go to the next project and the next project and the next project.
Great, great, great. So is it sort of like if there's net metering in the neighborhood and somebody gets net metering for putting solar on their roof, is it the same thing with community solar? So on a sunny day, you get more credit than if it's raining?
No, not in our case. In the case of community solar, it's not necessarily governed. You're getting a discount, and that discount can be 5 or 10, and in certain cases up to 20% if you're a low, medium income customer, discount on the credit. So we apply the credits based on your consumption to basically reduce your bill. So if you have a $100 bill, we're basically going to apply credits and you have a 10% discount. We're going to apply credits for $10. So your bill is really only $90, not the $100.
Okay, so it's not net metering, it's not based on how much energy the project makes, and if you have a sunny year being better than a cloudy year, or
Yeah, so the project itself will have a yield, right? Which is it generates a certain amount. That yield will be based upon, there's always seasonal impacts and there's always sunny day, non-sunny days, but there's a view for a 5 megawatt project, which is the normal size of a community solar project. In some states, that's a required number. So 5 megawatt projects are not meant to be the big, huge utility ones. They're meant to be smaller so they can fit in local communities.
so when you say 5 megawatts, is it like 5 megawatts or less, or 5 megawatts or larger, or does it have to be
5 megawatts or less.
5 megawatts or less? So that's just under the number because the number for being a PV system that would comply with NEC Article 691 for large scale PV systems has to be 5 megawatts AC or bigger.
Yeah. So it's an intentional number in most of the state legislatures, right? Yeah. So that 5%, and that will have a yield over an annualized period that will produce amount of credits, if you will, produce energy, which equals a credit. And then we go find, sometimes it might produce more or less, but we're generally always trying to map every kilowatt or megawatt of power produces a credit. We then put those credits a la discounts into customers' hands. And the customer types, by virtue of them being signed up, we may be able to add more credits or take more credits down fundamentally to make sure that they're getting a 5 or 10% discount through time. So that's sort of us as a servicer, making sure we're managing the yield, taking all of those credits, properly placing them on customers. And at times, do we need to slightly adjust the sizes? Sure, we do. So that's sort of our role in this equation, is to manage the customer side relationship and place the credits properly on their utility bill or bill them, because not every market, the credits don't show up in utility. They're not utility consolidated bill. Some days we send it directly to the customer to pay.
So, from a customer's point of view, is there anything different than just noticing that they're getting a discount on their bill?
There isn't. Yeah. So that's, some people say, hey, so are those clean renewable megawatts making their way to my doorstep? The answer is no. What they're making the way onto the grid. So it's changing the complexion or the percentage of the grid that is being fed by renewable energy sources versus other traditional energy generation sources, fossil fuel sources. So that's what it's doing. But you're going to get a mix at your house, right? No matter what. But you, by subscribing to this, are incentivizing the build of net new clean energy generation on the grid, because that's the way it works. We said we will go to market, find customers, whether it's businesses, small commercial, apartment buildings, residential customers, low, medium income customers. We'll put them on these projects. And by their subscription, they're basically fueling the build out of these privately funded community solar farms.
And so, is there like a waiting list to get in these projects? Because it seems to me, if I'm living in an apartment in Massachusetts or New York, and all of a sudden there's a limited amount of subscriptions for discounts of whatever it is, 10% off on your electricity, something like that, that everybody would want to sign up as soon as possible, and there would probably be not enough to go around.
So love the way you think, Sean. Love the way you think. So at this particular point, I'm looking for that curve where everybody wakes up every morning and is like, geez, how do I get myself on one of these community solar farms so I can get the discounts as opposed to somebody else, and so you're right about there is an element of scarcity, right? But increasingly more and more projects are getting built. But there is also an element of education. And by that, I mean, most people aren't waking up saying, hey, I might need to go change my insurance company for my car. Maybe they're doing that, but that's still probably a low incident. They might be saying, I need to go buy a new pair of shoes, but they're generally not waking up every day and saying, hey, I need to get myself attached to a community solar farm to get electricity savings. They might think I'd love electricity savings, but what we have to do is educate the market, right? And part of the reason I love having this conversation with you is people are like, hey, I didn't realize there was an opportunity for me to get electricity savings as an alternative putting rooftop solar. Oh, you mean I can actually do this? That's actually pretty neat. And I don't even have to have a roof. I can be a business tenant, not a building owner. I can be a residential tenant as well as a residential owner. Oh, that's really neat. Okay, great. So how does it work? Oh, I sign up easy and then I come on board. So that part of the process is there. When we've done that and we fill it up, we do then create a wait list. So then the idea is, because sometimes they fill up and people are like, oh, this is great. So then they fill up. We create a wait list because people, to your point, do move, right? They might go from apartment or from house to house. And when they move out of the utility area, then we've lost them. And then we bring another customer back on. And that's what we spend the balance of the 25 years when we're managing it, making sure it's always staying full. But there's a clear need for people to sort of be like, okay, in the things I can consider to save money on my energy bill and help in my own personal goals as a business or as an individual to basically advance the development of more renewable energy, community solar is an option. That's part of the conversation we're trying to get to be more pervasive. In certain markets, it's well known. In other markets, it's still emerging.
So if they move in the same utility area, so they move across the street or down the block, something like that, they can take it with them, or do they have to get on the list?
You bet. Yeah, and that's the subtlety of how it works, which is if that community solar farm is connected to the utility that serves your house, you can subscribe.
Okay. But if they're working with Perch in New York and also in Boston, then they can't switch it from there to there, even though they're working with Perch.
So let's say you're at Con Ed in Manhattan, and you then move to Eversource, which is the utility in Boston. That would be a step change. But by the way, we have projects in Boston. So you could still say, hey, I'm moving. We're like, hey, where are you moving to? I'm moving to Boston. You're like, oh, well, great. Would you like to go on a wait list for a project we have up in the Boston area? They're like, oh, perfect. Yeah, put me on there. If they're saying I'm moving down the block, we're like, okay, great. What's your new address? What's your new account number? We'll switch it from old apartment to new apartment or old home to new home, old business to new business.
So I imagine it's probably pretty easy to get people to sign up because it just seems dumb not to. But is there any problems getting people to sign up sometimes? Is there like unsubscribed solar out there?
There is, yeah. So the way to think about it is it's easy once you understand it. So I can just
Mhm.
go back to there's an education and awareness. People are like, oh, I didn't realize this. How does it work? So there's a little bit of additional work because the industry is still young. It's growing and it's fast growing at
Mhm.
that, but it's still young.
I'm sure people just tell their neighbors and yeah.
Yeah, so it's like tell your friends, we'll provide incentives to do that. And the idea is the main reason people will be like, okay, great. Like, so is 5% enough savings? Is 10% enough savings? And they're like, sure, why wouldn't I do it? Right. And the common reason that we see for when people unsubscribe through time, that people do move, right? And that's just common for anybody that has that particular play. And that's probably one of the bigger drivers for why people will unsubscribe through time.
How often do you see people unsubscribing because they feel sorry for the utility and they want to give them more money?
Yeah, no, that's not a reason code for people leaving. Yeah, that's not
You haven't
one of them.
seen that one yet.
I haven't seen that one.
I don't know. There's all kinds of crazies out there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And listen, the utilities are our partners in this, right? So we're working closely with them to make sure we get the credits on the customer's bill, right? To the extent there are, we're submitting the separate bill for the credits to the customer, we're working with them. So we have a team member or two or three who spend time always interacting with the utilities to make sure the data transfer is right, just so it works well for the end customer.
So I'm assuming here too that customers, they don't get to deal with things like tax credits and depreciation and SRECs and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure is a headache, if somebody just puts solar on their own house and they have all these tax forms and stuff to fill out. So somebody else would get those benefits and then pass on the discount to them, I guess.
Yeah, so the solar farm owner, right, called the developer, but the long-term solar farm owner owns those, has all those rights. Those are native to the solar farm that's built locally in your community. That person gets those particular benefits. The benefit that the customer gets, whether you're a business or a residential customer, is the subscription discount on your bill.
Yeah. And then I guess they don't have to go out there and find where this project is that's giving them solar and then clean it off and bring the mop.
They don't have to do anything. They sit there, they take five, if that, 5 or 10 minutes talking to one of our agents or talking or just going online and putting in their zip code and say, oh, geez, there's a farm near me. And you sign up and 5 minutes later, you're off to the races and we'll put you on the next farm available. Right.
Do people know where the solar is, like the solar farm is that they're getting their electricity from? Do they get to drive by it and go like, that's where my electricity comes from?
That's a fun part of this. So one of the things we've learned is that people are curious, whether you're a business or an individual customer, you're curious, which farm did you end up putting me on? Right. So they'll sign up and sometimes we'll have a farm we know they're going on. Other times they'll sign up and they're like, we're waiting to place you on a farm that's being built as we speak. Right. We then do provide notices to the customers about the farm that they're on. And we'll send pictures of that farm. Sometimes people end up signing up and they're like, which farm are you putting them on? And we're like, oh, we started construction. Oh, we're almost done with construction. We just got connected to the grid and they're doing testing now. And then they'll see pictures of it along the way. And so we're saying it's not on your roof, but we've found that people find it interesting to watch the journey about the thing being built in their backyard and where it's located. And, again, these are generating plants, so people can't go in and touch and feel, right? But they can drive around and see where they're at. And then there's a sense of interesting, like, oh, so those sets of panels, some portion of those panels are generating power for my house, right? And that I'm getting discounts on. And the answer is yes. And people love that. That's a really interesting part of the story. There's a sense of possessiveness in a good way, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I have an idea for you. You can kind of estimate, like a person uses, say, 20 modules, and then you could go from Google Earth and you can draw a rectangle around their 20 modules and go, these ones are giving you electricity. And
There you go.
then that
There you
makes it
go.
even more personal. Yeah.
It is fun. It is fun. I love the idea, Sean.
Huh.
Sometimes we try to do that in a way which we sort of show a whole host of people above a solar farm, and we draw them down to little
Oh,
modules
neat.
themselves and say, here's a business person, here's a residential person, and somebody takes a little chunk that's bigger or smaller, depending on whether they have a big or small house or an apartment. I think it's clever. We're thinking the same way.
All right, great. Yeah. Yeah, about 15 years ago, I came up with this idea. It was called Solar Cell Registry. Just like they have a star registry where you can buy a star, and solar was a lot more expensive there. So it wasn't going to be on the module level, it would be on the cell level. And to make it something where somebody could invest in an individual solar cell for a couple of dollars, something like that. And then they can see it from Google Earth where it is and watch it make money for them. So I do have that URL too, solarcellregistry.com. So I never got around to it, but maybe we could work on something together someday.
Well, that sounds like fun. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
follow up on that.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Good. We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSean, that's solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. And so let's see. So not every state has these community solar laws, and some community solar laws are better than others. There's some places that perhaps have community solar laws that don't have much community solar just because the law isn't good enough. So what can people do to change this? Like, I guess we can lobby the government and our state associations and public utilities commissions and all that. Do you get involved in any of that? Do you have meetings with local officials in states that don't have community solar programs, or what can people do?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great sort of topic area. So yes, a key part of what we do is there's a regulatory and policy aspect of what we're doing, right? So there's in the states that have already enabled, right, and passed the requisite sort of community solar laws and then put the policies in place and the rules about how it will be administered, there's always a chance to improve the current operating projects. And then there's a separate set of exercises in which you're then going and talking to a market like Ohio or Pennsylvania or Michigan, for instance, and saying, look at what we're doing in these other markets. Look at how this could help and benefit the residents of Ohio or Pennsylvania. So that's the advocacy side. And then there's the other side of constant policy tweaks. And so we have policy people on our team, right, that do this directly with utilities to change utility-based sort of rules and policies, to do it with the commissions themselves. But then we also have an industry association, the Community Solar sort of Industry Association, that then also advocates to do those. So what are we talking about? So to ask myself a leading question, which I know you're probably going to, which is, so what are we talking about? Like, so in the improvement area, there's a notion of if you can put that credit really simply on the customer's current utility bill, it makes it a lot easier. So they all of a sudden they see, okay, interesting. So there's the credit that my 10% or 5% discount shows up right there on the long line items of my bill. And I don't have to pay anything else. I pay right like I am yesterday before I signed up for community solar. And then now that I'm on it, I still pay the utility. That's called utility consolidated billing. New York has it. Illinois has it, right? Maryland doesn't have it today, but is rules it's shifting from dual bill to there. And, New Jersey is another market that's dual bill that's shifting to what we call utility consolidated bill. The idea is simple. Make it easy for customers to pay the same bill they were paying before and have the discounts show up there nice and easy. That's a subject of ongoing policy advocacy to get more states to go from a dual bill model, which is you strip it off the utility bill and then we, Perch, pay something separate. Or we have to create a brand new bill and then Perch has to send you the whole bill. It just seems a lot, and it is a lot easier. And customers are like, hey, I didn't really think I'd have to pay two bills. I don't really want to pay two bills, right? I'd rather just pay one bill. And interestingly enough, that's part of the value proposition, that you don't really have to do anything other than continue to pay, ComEd in Illinois, or Ameren in Illinois, or ConEd or NYSEG right? Or National Grid in New York, and you can keep paying them just like you always did. That's an example of an improvement in current markets, and in the net new markets. Let's just make it really easy for consumers to adopt this, really easy. And that then lets these projects go faster and faster. So it just takes a little bit of a step out of the whole process that people are like, oh, that's even better. Let's do that.
Yeah, great.
Adoption curve that goes a little faster.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit about how the billing works with community choice aggregation, which is different from community solar. And so with community choice aggregation, also known as a CCA, and there's certain states that do CCAs. And so they don't change the billing or anything. In fact, a lot of people with CCAs don't even know that they're on it. And so what essentially happens is your municipality, so it could be like your city or your county, decides that they want to be a CCA, and then they get to purchase the electricity instead of the utility purchasing the electricity, but the utility still gets to do the distribution and the billing and all that kind of stuff. And that's actually what got me into solar, is because my friend Paul Finn wrote a law called community choice aggregation, probably going on 30 years ago now. And now we've got over 10% of the US gets their electricity through a CCA, but there's a lot of states that don't have it. It's mostly just a few states that are doing the CCAs, California being the big one.
California is definitely the big one.
Yeah, Massachusetts, Ohio.
Ohio does it right. I frankly love that you brought this up, because I actually, in a prior life, was basically with large retail energy companies, and I was personally actively involved in the CCA space. So having specifically been the supplier to, and then work to get the notices out to those customers in those municipalities and get them signed up, to the tune where at some point I had over close to 1 million customers on CCA projects across
Wow.
Illinois, Ohio. There's natural gas aggregation as well as electricity, as you know, as well as in Massachusetts, right, as well. So I love that you brought it up, because it is simple. And the fact that you make it simple and you deliver benefit, right, a la the savings, is a great thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Great, great. Yeah, and a lot of people get mixed up because it has that word community in there, and they're like, community
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
And I'm in this place called Orinda, California right now, and we're surrounded by all the other cities went with the CCA, and for some reason my city council is bought off.
Uh, yeah,
So,
didn't, yeah, I guess you got to go to Sonoma, because I guess Sonoma and Marin have big CCA programs, if I
yeah, and they
recall.
talk about like MCE for Marin Clean Energy. And it's not just in Marin anymore. It's in my neighboring city, Lafayette, which is, you have to cross a big bridge to get to Marin from there.
I used to live in San Francisco, so I know your neck of the woods well. So
Oh, great. Yeah. So could somebody have a CCA and community solar at the same time?
I would think yes, but I think it's a little murky as to what some of the rule overlaps might look like, because it's not crystal clear. But there is a really interesting argument for how do you sign up customers en masse. You can choose whatever supplier you want, but on top of that, how do we actually also choose some of that supply to be from a local community solar farm? Why wouldn't that be advantageous? Why wouldn't we do that? Right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So another thing too, I guess that would kind of relate to that is when people sign up for community solar, do they sign up to offset their whole bill? Or, like when people put solar on their roof, they might be offsetting part of their bill.
Yeah. So the savings is basically off of their electricity bill, the complete size of their electricity bill. So that's where the discount savings is based on.
So it's not like I'm getting all my electricity from solar. Is it designed to be that way?
It's attempting to do that, but in a very simple way. So whatever your total cost and consumption is, what's your total electricity bill, how do you fundamentally run a 5% discount off of that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like when people have community solar, do they say I'm getting all my electricity from solar?
Well, what they say is that it doesn't quite work with that, because it's hard to, the connective tissue doesn't work that, because it's not plugging straight into your home or business. What people say is, I'm excited. I'm subscribed to a community solar farm in my local community. I get credits as a consequence of that subscription that save me 5 or 10% on my electricity bill. And because of my subscription, I'm helping fund the development of net new clean renewable energy, as opposed to it being servicing my house. So it's really about the mission of building more clean energy generation in their local market and changing the complexion of the grid from increasingly more green and renewable sources.
And also because solar works when the sun is out and it doesn't work at night, is there a such thing as community energy storage?
Yes, great question. Some of the projects that are being built that are community solar projects are attaching storage to them. It wasn't where it was natively started, but increasingly there's some storage capabilities being added. But again, like you don't necessarily go that 100% of my supply is from my community solar subscription. Your home and or business is still connected to the grid. What we're fundamentally saying is that your consumption on an annualized basis is matched to that farm, even if it's not 100% of the time all coming from renewable sources, because you're still getting a mix that's powering your home.
Sure. Yeah, it'd be interesting to figure out how they're going to incorporate all that kind of stuff. Another thing, too, is a lot of your customers, being renters and things like that, don't have the ability to charge electric vehicles while they're sleeping, like most people do. And so I would think that there might be some kind of way to work with some kind of EV charging company or to start your own that goes along with the community solar company to figure out some way where renters can have EV charging. Is there any connection there yet, or is that some kind of good future
Not
thing?
for us yet. We've looked at whether there's an additional opportunity to bring EV charging sort of solutions to a customer who's already like-minded, who's signed up, made a subscription to community solar and says, okay, what else can I do? Are there other EV product solutions for me because I do have an EV? We've thought about it that way. You're sort of going to the other side of the equation, which is the source for the EV chargers a community solar choice? So that would be more of a commercial offtake partner. So we have commercial offtake partners that it's a mall or a hospital, and there's
Hmm.
no reason the commercial offtake partner couldn't likewise be an EV charging system.
Okay, great. And another thing too that I was just thinking is when somebody moves, can their, access to community solar be passed to the new tenant, or do the new tenant have to get on the waiting list?
They could, but the new tenant ultimately needs to provide their account number, their billing and payment information, right? Because it's somebody new paying for that electricity bill. So you need the net new person, the new tenant, their account number, and so forth. So they more than likely, unless there's a perfect timing, more than likely they're going on the waiting list and coming on board, right?
Great. Yeah, I'm sure it can get really confusing with all of the different utilities to connect to and all of their different policies and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice that your company, Perch, is taking care of that.
Yeah, trying to make it easy for customers, right? The idea is how can I get savings and support the development of clean, renewable energy?
Great, great, great. So let's see, what other things should we talk about and get out there for people?
Well, I know we've been doing some things with low, medium income customers. So there, you might have read a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act, right?
Sure, yeah. And LMI, low, medium income, yeah.
Yeah, low, medium income.
So there's like extra tax credits for that?
Yes. And so that if and certain states have adopted policies that say, hey, X% of the solar farms that are built should make sure that the customers who are signing up for those are low, medium income customers because they want the benefits of these discounts to be spread across all who are capable, not just for businesses and homeowners, but also to rent tenants and renters and those who their energy bill is often outsized. It's often a bigger part of their household budget. And if you could get a 20% savings, so the incentive actually goes up to 20% if you qualify as a low, medium income customer instead of what normally might be a 5 or 10% for others. So there's an added benefit. So you're getting 20% discount on your electricity bill. And that means a meaningful savings to folks who are on tighter
Mhm.
household budgets and who really fit the qualifications of a lower medium income family.
Yeah, I know I've been to New Jersey a number of times over the last couple of years because of a community solar company has to actually offer training to low and medium income people. And so they ship me out and I go do some classes out there.
Oh, you do? Oh, good for
Yeah.
you. So you're part of that. So that's one of the requirements is how do you actually help provide for job training? I'm
Yeah,
assuming is
yeah.
that yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for
Hmm.
job training, Sean. Yeah, no, that's great. I didn't realize you had done that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's one of the aspects of this, which is how does the developer themselves actually help from a job creation standpoint, help not only can you be a subscriber, but you may also be able to be trained to have gainful employment to develop additional community solar projects, on the ground. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been going out there for this one company, and I guess they're probably a developer, so they might be one of the companies that you work with.
I have a guess of who they are, but yeah, so there's a couple of,
Does it start with a D?
one of them does. Yeah, one of them
Okay.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dimension. Dimension. They're really
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Great people. Great people.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I love working with Dimension. In fact, I was thinking I had to ask them to be on the podcast too, because
Yeah, why
I
not?
was
Yeah,
just
why
going
not?
out there working for them. But yeah, everybody there has a really great attitude. And it seems that you have a great attitude. In fact, one thing I was looking at your website and you had the Perch, and then you had something for each letter of Perch. So P for purposeful, and then E for entrepreneurial. And then I thought it was kind of interesting. So it says, we're visionary disruptors, changing the status quo, unafraid to fail forward. I like the last part where it says unafraid to fail forward. So
Yeah.
just going for it. And then while we're at it, R was respectful, C was collaborative, and then H for honest. And so those are all really good things. And so, like the H for honest, there's been a lot going on lately as far as like you read articles and things like that, or you look on Reddit posts, and people are coming into contact with dishonest salespeople. And I'm trying to figure out how to, how to fix that, make sure that people are NABCEP certified. I'm always telling people to go to the NABCEP website
Yeah.
and find somebody that's NABCEP certified to sell them their system, just to make sure that they're honest, because if they weren't honest, NABCEP would actually take away their certification. And so that's great to have community solar where you don't have to worry about talking to somebody that's going to give everybody a different deal, and it just takes a little bit of confusion out of that. Do you see any kind of future? Like, where do you see this being in 20 years? Are more people going to have community solar or put the solar on the roof themselves?
Well, I mean, there's something easy about, there's plenty of rooftops. Let's start with that, whether it's a commercial rooftop or residential rooftop. But when you look at it and you say which rooftops qualify, you'll hear different stats from different people. But in the neighborhood of, there's 70% of the rooftops that might not qualify, right? And as a consequence, then maybe they can't accommodate solar panels, they aren't positioned properly. So that's a lot.
Oh, yeah, like in New York too, with just like 100-story buildings or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe not 100, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. So that's a big number. And so when you think about that and you think about how do you actually deliver the benefits of solar, given that you have, I love the fact that people have an option for rooftop. Don't get me wrong, but if they don't want to exercise that option, a great option for them, an equally compelling option is to sign up for community solar for a project that's nearby, that is a shared project, right? And I think that's really powerful. And by the way, 70% of the people can't put it on the roof anyway. So we should have that option. It brings the option to more people. And to your point earlier, maybe you're not a homeowner, right? Or maybe you can't afford it and you are a homeowner, right? And whether you're a business person or as a tenant or a residential customer or low medium income customer, it just gives the option to more. It opens it up. You have an opportunity to get discounts and to make a meaningful contribution to growing more clean energy onto our grids. That's a pretty cool proposition that you now can really bring it to a lot more folks. And that's powerful.
Yeah, yeah, great. Hey, I have another question that I thought of too. Is let's say that somebody already has solar and it's offsetting half their bill. Can they get community solar?
No. So if you already have rooftop solar, that's why we sort of work with the utility and they find out if they're already a net metered rooftop, they can't qualify for both because it's a double dip. That's one of the typical rules for a knockout.
Okay. So there's a ton of people that are in the solar industry, working in the solar industry, installing solar, and they live in some of those 75% of houses that can't have solar for one reason or another, a lot of times because they're in an apartment somewhere.
Yep.
So how do they get the community solar? How do they find you?
They find us because we'll reach out to them. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're marketing and educating them. We might do an event in their building, right? Which we've
Mm-hmm.
just done. So we've just done a whole variety of events with 7 different New York-based buildings for affordable housing customers. And we'll host events in sort of social common areas. We'll do flyers and leaflets. We'll do mail. We'll do email, right? We'll reach out to customers. So there's ways you can sign up digitally. You can sign up and you can call us and you can say, I don't quite understand this thing. So it looks interesting, but I need to talk to somebody. And you could talk to them in person. You can talk to them on the phone, and or you're like, I actually get this. I'm just going to go sign up right online. So we're doing a variety of mechanics to let people know, hey, we have solar farms in your neighborhood, right? Or in your utility area. Here's what the value proposition is. And you can choose any number of ways to come on in. So we have a whole host of partners, right? We might actually knock on your door. We might actually send you a mail piece. You might see us online. You might see an advertisement anywhere. You might see it from a partner. Like we may have companies that are partners. You might see it from your building owner who says, hey, listen, we found this great opportunity for you to save some money on an electricity bill. Lots of different ways to get the message out there. And then we create easy ways for you to then say, in 5 minutes or less, if you will, sign up nice and easy. And all it takes is your name, your address, your account number, and some billing history, and you're off to the race.
So I would think that people in the solar industry, there's so much business that we're too busy to pay attention, and we might miss the meeting and things like that. So is there a way where somebody can get to be first in line, like go to your website, or I guess you said call you or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, perchenergy.com, www.perchenergy.com. You go on there and you can say, is there a solar farm in my vicinity? You simply enter in your zip code and it'll pop up whether we have something capable. And at that point in time, you can either say, hey, good news, we have a solar farm near you, or we have solar farms, but they're currently full. Would you like to go on a waiting list?
Okay.
That's definitely out there.
So, to all our listeners out there that work in the solar industry that have some great excuse to why they don't have solar on their roof or why they're not using solar energy, there goes your excuse.
Yeah, exactly. Nice and easy.
So that's it. All I need to do is go to perchenergy.com. And so I guess that's where to find you and things like that. And so I also noticed that on your LinkedIn profile, it says you participated, you were a competitor in the 1987 America's Cup race in Australia.
That's right.
That's pretty cool. So you started off in wind power.
Yeah, legitimately. Yeah, exactly. Different type and powering something completely different. But yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I have a sailboat in the San Francisco Bay, and I got to see America's Cup out here when Oracle came from behind and then won. And I was there that day when Oracle won. So that was super exciting. Are you still sailing, I guess, probably?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, we'll have races. I'm doing the sort of a Saturday series of races and then a regatta here and there. So mostly through the summer we'll race. And yeah, I remember when I did the America's Cup, those were 12 meters. So those were sort of the class of boat that doesn't exist anymore. You now have sort of the Oracle style. You got these guys that sort of pop out of the water on the cats that fly, right? I mean, they literally almost fly, right?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, and when I lived in San Francisco, we used to sail in a lot of the races right in the San Francisco Bay there, right outside. It couldn't have been more picturesque to be sailing and racing right near the Golden Gate Bridge. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, my boat's over at the Pier 39 Marina, and there is an old America's Cup boat there.
Which one is there? Is that the St. Francis Yacht Club boat? The old St. Francis? Is it Eagle or is it
No, it's like,
what was that one?
okay, so the boat that's next to mine over at Pier 39, AC Sailing SF, and it says USA 76. So I think that means that it was 1976, maybe?
Yeah, so the USA, that was, if I recall correctly, USA 76, that was the St. Francis Yacht Club's boat that they sponsored. That's my memory.
Okay.
I'll double check, but I think
Well,
that's right.
I'm sure even if you're wrong, we're going to all think that you're right. So,
That's great.
yeah. And so it's just like I have to make sure I don't bump into it
Yeah.
because whenever I leave, I go right past it.
Is that Pier 39 restaurant and bar still there? That kind of cool place with indoor, outdoor, or is that not Pier 39?
Yeah. Well, Pier 39 has all kinds of shops and stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't think of one that's called Pier 39 Restaurant, but there's lots of good seafood restaurants and lots of tourists. So it's kind of a fun place to sail out of because it's like a couple hours. We go in and out under the Golden Gate most times and passing Alcatraz. So good place to go sailing. So if you're around, we'll let you come out and go sailing with us and teach us all your tricks.
Yeah. Well, and I would love to do that. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, just let me know when you're in town and we'll do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And vice versa. If you're out here in the Boston area, let me know too.
Well, I guess I will be there next week. I'll be teaching classes every day, but maybe we can meet up.
We'll figure it out. Good.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, on. Have a great rest of the day. Great weekend. All right.
Oh, yeah. So one more thing I was going to ask you is how do people find you? I guess LinkedIn, something like that?
Find me. Yeah, sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me through our website, perchenergy.com.
That was a fun looking website, by the way, too. Everybody was having too much fun. What kind of CEO are you? You're not torturing
Yeah,
people.
it's about let's have fun and let's
Uh-huh.
bring some great products to people.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
All right. Well, thank you, Bruce Stewart, Perch Energy CEO for Community Solar. And thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. To learn more about solar, about storage, about community solar, about community choice aggregation, about anything under the sun, or maybe someday not even under the sun, under the ground, who knows? Go to Solar, SEAN, that's solarshawn.com.